welcome to another Coffee with Kilroy. Got my coffee, or at least some left. It has been an early morning and wanted to get with you. There's the coffee right there. Get with you as soon as I can on what I like to call beverage in a book. My beverage coffee. My book is Naval Warfare, 1862 to 1911. This is a Panzer Digest Naval War special from Minden Games, a Battlegame book. That is a mouthful. So let me get a sip to replenish my throat, wet my whistle, whatever you want to call it. And let's talk about this. So I've covered a lot of Minden game books or battle game books and some of their standalone games as well. And so this might be my first Panzer Digest, though. I mean, Minden has come out with at least two different digest or kind of they're kind of like book magazines. You know, they look kind of like a magazine where they're covering a lot of different things, but yet they're in these book formats, right? And this one's actually called a battle game book, so they're really calling this out for the games that are in it. And each of these games, I believe they came out separately or in different editions. And what they've done is they've done a special here where they've taken 3 naval games and put them into one book here. So you've got the Monitor versus the Merrimack, which is 1862, so that's American Civil War. You have Tsushima, which is 1905, that's the Russo-Japanese War. And then you have Great War NAVTAC, 1914. So that's going to be World War I, and I believe that is a miniatures rule set. Look at the back of the book here. Let's get it a little bit closer so you can read it there. There's the Minden Games symbol right there. So as it says on the back here, bring naval history alive by playing these authentic tactical level naval warfare simulation games on your tabletop. Monitor versus Merrimack, 1862, recreates the Battle of Hampton Roads during the American Civil War. Tsushima allows you to refight the Battle of Tsushima between Japanese and Russian fleets. Great War NAVTAC, 1914, focuses on the exploits of the German battlecruiser Goeben during World War I. Battle game books are designed to be authentic, yet very playable to allow you to take an active role in learning about and understanding great historical events. Naval Warfare 1862 to 1918 is volume 6 in the series. It is also cross-published as Panzer Digest Naval War Special. Okay, so I guess they did publish this separately at some point. Now, something that you need to understand about battle game books from Minden, or especially the battle game books, the standalones come with a little bit different elements, but the battle game books come in the book. So these are basically a war game book. Everything you need to play, except for maybe pencils and dice and stuff like that, is in this book here. The counters are in here, but you're going to need to make copies of them and then cut them. Either I suggest you don't cut them out, but you'd make copies of the page and then copy them on stickers and mount them on something, or copying them and just on thicker paper and cut them out, however you want to make your counters. But you're going to need to make your counters. You're going to need to make your own maps. Now, some of these, a lot of times naval games don't necessarily need a map. You can use a table space. They kind of pull from the old Avalon Hill game Jutland, and they really are kind of an extension of miniatures or miniature games. But if there is a map, you're going to need to make that yourself. Sometimes Minden has special packs or kits that have the elements of the game printed on a little bit harder stock or thicker stock. But again, they're not mounted or die cut. I mean, they're not, I shouldn't say they're mounted, but they're not die cut in that regard with respect to the counters. So long story short, too late. There's a little bit of a do-it-yourself with Minden Games, especially their battle books. There's going to be some. You just can't take this book and then start playing immediately, or at least most of the games you just can't start playing immediately because you need to do a little bit of homework in building the counters or pulling out maps or copying off player aids and stuff like that. But it's all in here. It's just you've got to it's a little DIY, do it yourself. DIY. There you go. I can't spell today. DIY project. Anyway, Naval Warfare, 1862 to 1918. See what we got in the book here. This is Battlegame book number 6. I've covered several of them. It tells you how to use this book. And it's going to go over a little bit about what I just said about maybe having to put some stuff together. Here's an introduction. You have some imagery in here. And this first one's going to be, and this isn't like the digest, which might have other articles. This is, I think, just has the games in it. So it's going to be, the contents of this book are really just those 3 games. So here's the Monitor versus the Merrimack. And here's your board coordinates. Tells you the components of what you're going to need. And this says you just need a standard checkerboard. So you need an 8x8 square grid to play this game. And then you've got ship counters, cards. So this uses a standard deck of 52 cards that you'll have to supply. Here's how to do setup. Here's sequence of play. Here's movement. Then you've got fire. You got a 2-hit table, a damage table. And these games, Minden Games, are generally not overly complex. The goal is to provide some historical context and feel for the conflict or the battle or the environment without having a ton of rules. And they do... They cover all kinds of different combat from air and land, but their sweet spot, at least in my opinion, is naval games. They have quite a few naval games, and they have a few naval systems where they have several games in that system. I believe the Tsushima game is part of a system that they normally do. Here's special damage. You've got your ship data card, so you have the Merrimack and the Monitor there. Let me go out a little bit more so you can see the full page there. And here's a historic Hampton Roads map here. Interesting. This is advanced rules. And Minden Games does that quite a bit. And Gary Graber is the proprietor of Minden Games. But he's not necessarily the designer of all their games, but he's the designer of the vast majority of their games. They have a sense of they typically have a regular game or a basic game, and then they'll have advanced rules, and they might have even a whole menu of advanced rules that you can add on later on. So that's what they're doing here. You've got regular, then you got advanced rules here. Got wooden ship critical hits there. That's interesting. Here's historical board scenarios. So that's if you're using that historical board. Now here's some different ships here. You got Minnesota, Congress, Cumberland, Patrick Henry. Here's some ship counters here. As you can see, not a whole lot there, but if you want to have the counter, you can print that out. Here's the game tables. So you might want to, if you're going to play this game, you might, instead of having to flip through the book all the time, you might want to make a copy of the game tables, so you have those off to the side, kind of a player aid. Here is the Monitor versus Merrimack ship counters. So you got some wooden ships there. And that page is left intentionally blank in case you wanted to just cut that out. All right, here's the next game. So as I said, this is just the game, so there's not going to be articles. This isn't really a war game magazine or a book magazine. This is, or a war game book. This is just a game book. War game book. What am I saying? Drink. All right. Got to get rid of my coffee here. This is the Battleship Captain game system. So this is based on one of their naval systems that I was talking about. And it's Russo-Japanese naval battle miniature rules. So it's kind of a war game, but you can use it for miniature. You can use counters or you can use miniatures with these games, and that's true for a lot of naval games, especially naval miniature rules. You can substitute them with counters. And here is an example of the counter. As you can see here, we have all kinds of information, and their naval games tend to borrow from each other. There's I've played at least I think 3 or 4 of their different naval games, and I've yet to sit down and kind of do a compare and contrast. But there's a lot of similarity on their games. Now their solo version are might have some of the same numbers, but they're definitely different because of the way that they do the AI. It's more of a sequence of play, the way they handle it. But on these, some of the numbers are similar. So here we have like main guns, fire level, broadside fire rating. You have the year, type, nationality, bow fire rating, or bow fire rating, armor rating, movement rating, name, stern fire, and flotation rating right there. So since I mispronounced, I need a drink. So, and if I was drinking something other than coffee, and I did that every time I mispronounced something, I'd be on the floor. All right, so this is the components and scale, game length, setting up, standard scenario there. Here's the sequence of play. Here's group movement. Here's formation. Individual ship movement, fire, combat range. Here's your range chart. See that there. Then you have fire combat, fire levels. Here's some damage effects down here. Flotation damage, dead in the water, sinking and repairs, torpedoes. And then that's the basic game. Then you have special rules. Got some collision damage here. Then you have optional rules. You have special rules. You have optional rules. Then you have scenarios here. So you've got a historical scenario, a variant, and then a design your own scenario there. And then you got some designer notes by Gary Graber himself. And here's an example of play. That's kind of nice. So you have an example of play here. So you could substitute miniatures. I mean, you'd have to keep this information off to the side as kind of a data card. But you can use miniatures in this game and just supplement it with those data cards there. And here's all your key, combat charts. So it's something you might want to make a copy of and have that off to the side. Maybe make it on a little bit harder stock or thicker stock, so you could use it as a player aid. So you have your fire combat hit table, special damage, torpedo hit table, special torpedo, fire level. And this is the battleship and armored cruiser ratings of the pre-dreadnought era. So this is kind of cool. So I always love stuff like this. See, I grew up with one of my first naval games, and my first naval game that I ever played, or naval focused game was, oh my God, why can't I think of it now? The opposite of war at sea. Is it War in the Pacific? Pacific War. It was the very abstract. I guess it was War in the Pacific. Golly, I'm having drink. I'm having a mental lapse today already. But anyway, that was one of my first to play. But then Victory in the Pacific. That was it. And then one of the first games I owned, I never owned Victory in the Pacific. For any of you out there that are fanboys, I'd like to have a good copy of Victory in the Pacific. Anyway, the first game I bought and played a lot was Battle Wagon. It was an old task force game. It came in a little Ziploc baggie, real small format game, and had checkoff charts, kind of like for you see in like Starfleet battles, Really liked that game, and it had a lot of data like this, and I would just pour over that data all the time. So here's your battleship and armored cruiser ratings for the pre-Dreadnought era. So we've got the type, the flotation, the guns, the fire level, the fire ratings, the year, and the, what is that? That's the movement. The first number is the ship's movement. Second number is the armor. So you got movement and armor, M&A ratings right there for each one of these ships here. So you have Japan, Russia, Great Britain, and then we have United States. But you got the Kansas and the Missouri, Germany, and France. So, and then you have the counters over here, which again, I mean, if you want to use miniatures, you can use these probably as data cards. And I imagine the back pages, yeah, the back page is left blank, so you can cut them out. They made it so you can cut these out. How dare they? Who would ever deface a book like that? So here's some of the different counters you have here for the different ships. So that's kind of cool. I mean, you've got yourself a little bit of you've got a game that has a lot of the ships or some of the main ships for the pre-Dreadnought era. You can go to town with that. And it's got a top-down view. That's kind of cool. I like the top-down view for naval games, actually. Then you have some key charts here. This is the damage markers. Oh, so this is the damage. No, this isn't key chart. This is your counter. So you need to cut these out. You know, make a copy or cut these out, and these are your damage markers to tell you what's going on, to mark the ships. Now we're on to the last game, and this is a miniatures rules. This is a Great War NavTech 1914 World War I naval miniatures rules. So this was pre-Dreadnought. Now we get into World War I. And it gives you a little context, gives you the scale and definitions, setting up, victory conditions, sequence of play, movement, target aspect, fire combat. Well, a lot of stuff on fire combat. Ranging fire, regular fire, damage from regular fire, critical hits, effective accumulated damage. Then you have optional rules. As I said, you have a base game. Then you always have an optional rule here. I'd be surprised we didn't have special. Yeah, here's advanced rules. We got house rules even. Look at that. So here's some charts here. Torpedo damage and additional torpedo damage if even dice roll. So there's like a special exploding dice kind of thing there. Here's some scenarios. Oh, here's weather. Here's scenarios. Here's design your own scenario. Here's distance scales for miniatures. Here's your fire table, critical hit table. And this is the for the different types of armor versus the gun. Right there. Advanced penetration and damage table. So if you want to get to the advanced rules. And then we have a ship characteristics table. So this is kind of cool. So this is that little data sheet for ships of the day. Not as many as in the previous game, but there's quite a few ships here. And then you get some images there. Then you get into the counters themselves. And again, top-down view. Now these don't have the data on them. All right, so this is set up as truly a miniatures game. So you could use miniatures for this, or if you want to use counters, but you don't have these have all the data on it. So you're going to have to refer to a chart to figure that out. Then we have an article in here. So I was wrong. We do have some articles in this. The role of ammunition supply in naval simulation games. Interesting here. Kind of cool. World War I monitors in Battleship Captain. Interesting. Then we have some variant World War I monitor variant ship counters here. Got a couple pages of those. Experimental Jutland 1916 rules. This is some experimental rules for a World War I quick play war game I call Jutland 16. So this is not a full game, but uses a system I've been working on. So you get yourself in you get yourself a mini game. That's kind of cool. Look at that. With bonus. Combat table, British combat, German combat, British damage, German damage. Interesting. But that is a really small game there. Here are some, here's the history of the Panzer Digest War Game Journal. So the Panzer Digest, that's why I said it's kind of like a war game magazine, but they're done in these book formats here. So they have like a spine. So there's several of these. Shows you about what issue and what's in them. It's kind of cool. How to construct components. Here you go. Here I told you there was a little bit DIY here. Taking a look at the Naval Wargame Society. And the final word. There you have it. Naval War Games and Miniatures rules from Minden Games here. I like the salvo system. The Advanced Salvo European Theater, that's out of print. I like to get that, but I have Great War Salvo. Advanced Salvo is World War II, I believe. And here's that NavTech system for a couple battles here. So there you have it. That is what you get in a book, battle game book, Naval Warfare 1862 to 1918, Panzer Digest Naval War Special from Minden Games. So they lied. You get 4 games in here. Well, 3.5. So you get 3 games in here with rules to take these into your own scenarios, right? There's enough content in here that you can play the games that are there or make up your own scenarios. Plus you get a kind of a partially finished game, or really kind of a simple game of Jutland 16 in here as well. So quite a bit of content in there. And that is what I have for you today on Coffee with Kilroy. Thank you so much for stopping by. This is a little bit longer coffee. In fact, I went through almost all my coffee, and I started early. But thank you so much for stopping by. And the best way I know that you stop by is drop me a comment. What do you think about this book or any of these games or any of the other offerings from Minden Games? Love to hear your thoughts on it. Does the DIY aspect scare you away, and you want something more developed and substantial in a box with mounted counters and colorful maps and player aids? Or are you somewhat adventuresome and like to kind of get into it and make around, play with your own house rules and stuff? I think these the people that like doing house rules and kind of doing stuff their own way, I think they would like Minden Games type of offerings, because there's a kind of a homemade feel to some of this stuff. But if you're a prepackaged type of person and really like you're paying for quality and fully developed games, then this might not be your cup of coffee. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.